Hi, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good middle of the night to you and all that kind of stuff. It is, what is it? It's the first day of February. How about that? The first day of February. January, how long did that last? 5 minutes? Maybe a bit longer than that. February the 1st, 2024, Thursday. This is Paul English Live. Yeah, we're here every Thursday, 3 p.m. US Eastern Time, 8 p.m. in the UK for a couple of hours. I've had a wonderful day today where nearly everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. So I guess in a way that's kind of a perfect day, isn't it? Maybe. And we're coming to you on WBN324.zil, that's .zil. Links through to all the streams can be found at paulenglishllive.com. We're on quite a few platforms every week. Hopefully add more in the future, I guess, as the year rolls through. And there may be people joining us tonight. I don't know, actually. It's all been a bit up in the air. But you, dear listeners, are joining me. And, of course, the chat room is over at rumble.com. You can find the link to that, of course, at paulenglishllive.com. You're listening to Paul English Live here at WBN324.zil. WBN324.zil. We're here every Thursday at 3 p.m. Except, of course, I was here at 9 minutes past 3 p.m. today because, it's just in keeping with my day. And as I said, in keeping with my year. So I'm obviously in need of a very long vacation on one of those islands that people go to when their brains start to malfunction, because mine obviously is to some degree. We're back here. I'm going to have to tidy up all the recording afterwards, but of course, who cares about that? Let's just crack on with whatever we've got. But it's very much in keeping with my day and even my week, today's show, because I had a guest lined up at the beginning of the week, but they couldn't make it. Then I had another guest yesterday, but in discussing things over, I think we needed to put that one back a bit for all sorts of reasons. And then, right up until about 2 or 3 hours ago, I had another guest lined up, ready to come through, and that was not possible to pull that off either. So it's just been one thing after another. I thought, what should I do? This is about 45 minutes ago before I started messing up the beginning, and I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll have a drink. I don't mean alcohol. No, we can't be doing any of that. Although, my mind did turn to the thought a little bit. That's apple juice, by the way. I want you to know, maybe an audio soundtrack for drinking liquids is not actually required in radio, but it sort of comes through from time to time. Anyway, let me just type a little thing here because I have to do that. So I thought, what should we do? So the first month of this year has not been too bad. I've been talking to people. You'll know I've had guests in, and it's possible that somebody could rock up for the second hour in about 50 minutes' time. I don't really know, but they may well do. They're currently out doing something rather interesting, which they may want to talk about when they get here or not. And if they can't turn up today, excuse me, they should be here next week. So I combed through a few of my what would you call these things? Clips. I come through a few clips. I'm going to pepper a few clips throughout the show. Please feel free. Please feel free to call in if you like and keep things moving along, because today's been quite a day. So if you want to call in at any point during the show, I really don't mind today, because it's going to be bouncing around all over the place. The way you do it, you go to paulenglishlive.com, and below the main show image there, you'll see a little line with today's show, and it says something like, it's got some words on it and stuff. If you want to call in, click here. There's a nice big sort of green click here, and that'll bring you through to the studio where I'm hanging out, currently pressing buttons in the wrong order as I keep on doing. And you can join in and we can have a little chat about things. Now, you ever heard of a gentleman called Bill Gates? Listen to this, if you can.
We will have new vaccines. We'll have a TB vaccine, malaria vaccine, HIV vaccine, and even the things like COVID vaccines. We need to make them have longer duration, more coverage, and we're going to change, instead of using a needle, to use a little patch. So the pandemic really highlighted that we've been underinvested in those innovations.
I thought he said there TV vaccines, which I got quite excited about. Maybe I thought there was a way for people to get vaccinated against watching TV, which would be not a bad vaccine. I might even take that myself. No, I'm only joking, really. Poor old Bill, and he really does look very old. Of course, he's not poor, is he? That comes through on a little sort of caption clip service that I've got on Telegram, which I would recommend to all sorts of people. And they've built up like mad because I've been talking to people and actually having guests on, which I quite like. But as I was just saying earlier, if you just joined us, that's kind of been a little bit of a runaround this week. It's all gone a little bit crazy. But let me give you the clip here from that little clip, or the little wording. It says this: speaking from the WEF's annual Davos summit, Bill Gates excitedly announces all the new vaccines he has up his sleeve, ready to foist upon the world. We will have new vaccines. We need to make them have longer duration, more coverage, and we're going to change. Instead of using a needle, we're going to change to using a little patch. The pandemic really highlighted that we've been underinvested in those innovations. Now, this is one of those speeches, again, which you can read two ways, and you need to read them at least two ways, I would suggest. When he says we, who's he? We's the magic word here. It always is, you know. We're always using the word we, aren't we? See, I just did it then. But who's his we and who's our we? So I just read it like this. He goes, we will have, that is we, me and my pals, and my chums at the WEF and all these other little things that I'm involved with, we're going to have some new vaccines for you. And we need to make them have longer duration so that they harm you for a longer period. And we need more coverage because we want to harm more people for a longer period with more vaccines. And we're going to change. We're going to improve our ability to actually get more people to take vaccines and suffer for longer periods so we can control them more. And instead of using a needle, because this is just a thing, we're going to use a little patch, which will be even better for us. But and maybe people will fall for that because there's not a needle involved. Of course, there is a prick involved in the needle. And of course, Bill Gates probably fits that description, I think. The pandemic really highlighted, he says, that we've, that's me and my pals at the WF, have been underinvested in those innovations. And they have, because, they didn't do us enough harm, did they? They really didn't get enough harm to us. So that's what he wanted to do. And I found, by going through my little folder here, which I'd not gone to for quite a while, that there was obviously quite a bit on the whole Davos thing, which you may remember, it's all gone down the memory hole now, hasn't it? Which is where they were hanging out. And I've just been trying to find a few here. So we've got climate control, we've got vaccines, we've got the jabs for the masses, we've got patches, we've got Bill Gates. Isn't it fun? We've also got Archbishop Vigano. Now, if you've not heard this chap, he's a good guy. All right, he wears a very large cross, and I'm kind of a little bit put off by things like that. But this is a guy that's running counter to everything in the WEF system. Listen to this. This is a couple of minutes from the Archbishop.
Those who do not adapt to this fourth industrial revolution will find themselves ousted and will lose. They will lose everything, including their freedom. In short, Klaus Schwab is threatening the head of government of the 20 most industrialized nations in the world to carry out the programmatic points of the Great Reset in their nation. This goes far beyond the pandemic. It is a global coup d'etat against which it is essential that people rise up and that the still healthy organ of state start an international juridical process. The threat is imminent and serious, since the World Economic Forum is capable of carrying out its subversive project, and those who govern nations have all become either enslaved or blackmailed by this international mafia. In the light of these statements, and those of others no less delusional than Yuval Noah Harari, Schwab's advisor, we understand how the pandemic first served as a trial balloon for imposing controls, coercive measures, curtailing individual freedoms, and increasing unemployment and poverty. The new step will have to be carried out by means of economic and energy crisis, which are instrumental to the establishment of a synarchic government in the hands of the global elite.
Yeah, Archbishop Vigano there. And the little clip said, if you could make your way through his accent, I think he's an archbishop. Yeah, he is. I don't know what kind of an arch that means. The gist of it, the World Economic Forum is threatening the heads of government of the 20 most industrialized nations in the world to carry out the Great Reset, yes. It is a global coup d'etat, yes, against which it is essential that people rise up. That's you lot, and me, and, your mum and your dad, and all that kind of stuff. Those who govern nations have all become either enslaved or blackmailed by this international mafia. I think one of the good things that's happening these days, and by these days I really mean 2024, I don't know about you, I've got a very different feeling about this year. I don't know what that means. I mean, you could say, oh yeah, you and your pesky feelings. Maybe it's you and your pesky feelings too. I sense a quickening of all sorts of things, and although they are putting out ever more alarming news, I think the speed with which people are rejecting it is increasing. I don't think they've got the kind of traction that they think they should be getting, and they are beginning to look a bit like they've only got one plan, and they're doing it more and more, and they can't figure out quite why such a large amount of people, a large number of people, are effectively not buying it anymore. And I think that process is improving in favour of us lot. And just over to Earth Newspaper, who's just put a little link there in the Rumble chat. And just to let you know, this show goes out on WBN324.zil. It also goes out on Freefall Radio South Africa. It goes out on Rumble. You can find the link to the Rumble Room and the chat. The Rumble Room. Yeah, the Rumble chat room. Oh, Rumble Room. Quite like that. Over at paulenglishlive.com, and we're also on Speak Free Radio and Eurofolk Radio and Global Voice Network. I think we did have a bit of a messy start today, and I know exactly what caused it, and I am becoming the world master at this, but there we go. Anyway, there's a link in the chat room from Earth Newspaper. The Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano archive, 49 posts in there. He's been speaking a lot of courageous things for the last couple of years, and maybe, I guess because he goes around dressed the way he does with a very large cross, a huge number of people probably won't pay too much attention to it, associating that kind of stuff, with another control system, maybe the church. But we have to be careful about who we include and who we exclude. I mean, a few weeks ago, we were doing a show on Freemasonry. And as I think I mentioned last week as well, somebody who has communicated to me under the letter J got through to me and said it's not all one way, and I accept that it isn't. It absolutely is not all one way, and everybody that are involved in these things are not always bad people, and it's not always going to be the case that they are supremely evil and working away and all of these things. So there are good people in it, and I think if you remember that show, it was a few weeks ago with Dennis, we were just talking about the fact that Freemasonry at one point was a very wholesome, decent sort of organization, as are most organizations when they start off, but one by one they tend to fall. I think I've been joined by Paul, who's here. Paul, are you here in the studio for communication purposes, or because you wanted to shout at me because something technical had fallen down?
Oh, no. I expect the technical difficulties. I mean, that's what breaks up the monotony with the Paul English live show. It's great.
It is monotonous. It's terrible.
It's never the same old boring start with you talking over the intro music and bringing on a guest and all that. It's like you never really know what's going to happen, which you have to do because I
didn't deserve that today. I really didn't deserve that today. Obviously, I did deserve it because that's what happened. But that was it did typify my day, and as I was saying earlier, my week.
But I'm not picking on you.
No, it's good. I want to make
sure that
I think if I was a listener, I'd call in and go, "You prat," stuff like that. It's fun.
No, I'm absolutely not picking on you. I mean, the way this show works out is great for the overly shortened attention spans of the population in general. Now, of course, I'm not referring to your listeners, because your listeners are way above average. Absolutely.
Did you hear that,
average.
listeners?
But you are going
breathing on their fingernails now and going, "Oh, look at me."
Oh, yeah. Yeah, check me out. Ooh, I'm so cool. Yes, you are. I mean, hey, look, I read the chat and Rumble. I read it. I read some of the things these guys come up with, and they are infinitely more brilliant than I am. Infinitely.
Well, I'm going to give a tip of the hat to Warren straight off, Paul, because Warren's just written in here. Warren, the man with the immensely long username. But Warren is stealing my line. I'm sure I came up with this first, but you can steal away. Get this one. He says, Schwab can shove his great train set up his junction. I think that's what he was going to say, because I started calling it the Great Train Set because that's really what I think these guys need, and they just need to be left alone with a very large model railway and just pretend that that's the real world, and then they can be happy and think they're in control of all these sorts of things. But I do sense, I don't know about you, Paul, I really do sense a waning of what they consider to be their power in terms of the hold on people. Now, I could be wrong.
Oh, for
maybe
sure.
The people here as well are such seasoned researchers into this that they sense it as well. One always has to go out into the street and see what's going on with people, but maybe it's just as little. It's just as little is going on with them as it was before all these events. But I've got my rose-tinted spectacles on, and I like wearing them. I have to tell you.
No. You are spot on, because they got locked down. It was supposed to be for 2 weeks, then it became 2 months, and then it became 6 months. And they got their stimulus check from the government. They got $1,200, and then they got $600. Well, there were some countries that were giving their people like between $1,000 and $1,200 a month as a stimulus check. Mm-hmm. And just because you got a $1,200 stimulus check doesn't mean that the politicians didn't get, and get this, a $1.2 million stimulus check. That's what they got. Okay? So they can fill their deluxe freezers with all of this gourmet ice cream and then live stream on the internet and show off to all the people that are eating ramen noodles because they're out of money.
Wow.
Yeah, that worked out good.
Yeah. Someone's written here a little comment about Sam Melia's trial. I'm going to mention that a little bit later, but only briefly, but I'm going to acknowledge it for all the right reasons, but just not right now. But thank you for that, Jez Quadruple9. Look at me reading things at a distance. But yes, Paul, I think, Yeah, their powers. Let me play another clip. Here's another one. These, I suspect many of you here have heard these over the past few weeks, but I've not been playing any clips intentionally. I wanted to sort of move away from that for a bit. And I looked at them today, and I haven't even heard these things, right? I've not heard them, so these are blind. I'm just looking at them for brevity. This one's about 2 minutes long. This is from Australia. I seem to be hearing more and more stuff from Australia, certain people in Australia. Listen to this. Oh, what's happened
Instead
there?
of working together to push Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum plan based on United Nations policies, work together instead for our country. Klaus Schwab's life by subscription, quote, is really serfdom. It's slavery. Billionaire globalist corporations will own everything: homes, factories, farms, cars, furniture. And everyday citizens will rent what they need, if their social credit score allows. The plan of the Great Reset is that you will die with nothing. To pull off this evil plan, Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum will need to take more than just material possessions from Australians. Senators in this very chamber today who support the Great Reset threaten our privacy, freedom and dignity. Yes, they're in this Senate chamber. One Nation vehemently opposes the Great Reset, the Digital Identity Bill, theft of agricultural land use, forcing farmers off their land, and all of the Great Reset. One Nation has a comprehensive plan to bring our beautiful country back to sustainable prosperity. And in the months ahead, we will be rolling that plan out. Instead of Lib Lab pushing Klaus Schwab's Great Reset with the tagline, "You will own nothing and be happy," One Nation advocates the Great Resist. We stand for a world where individuals and communities have primacy over predatory globalist billionaires and their quizzling bureaucrats, politicians and mouthpiece media. One Nation accepts the challenge to provide a better future for everyday Australians. We have one flag, we are one community, and we are One Nation.
One Nation, I'm assuming that is some kind of an organisation that's springing up down in Australia. Are you aware of that at all, Paul?
No, but I have a total man crush on that guy. I love that guy. I love that guy. I do. Well, I have a total man crush on him.
I'll tell you who he is. Let's just read the blurb here because these are useful things. There's a summing up point at the beginning. It says, the plan of the Great Reset is that you will die with nothing. Well, I don't really mind that because, that's what I started off with. And that's what I actually will die with, irrespective of these human structures about this, that, and the other. I'm not really too worried about that. It's not my death that's the problem. It's my life that's the challenge. I think that goes for all of us. It's what we do, before wooden box time that really counts. We want to live a life, a decent life. That's Australian Senator Malcolm Roberts, everyone, that you were just hearing there in that clip. It goes on, it says, dropping serious truth bombs about the WEF. Now, being a pernickety sort, I don't like the word resist. I've mentioned this before. I really don't like it. I don't think we are resistors. I think we're restorers. And that's the word I prefer. I'm into constructive language and positive language as opposed to negative resistance language. But that's just me. I know a lot of people are going to use the word resist. Just because I'm pontificating about it doesn't mean that it's going to stop getting used. I know that, but I still think it's a kind of negative energy wave that doesn't help us. And I've mentioned here before that as a people, wherever we may be, North America, Northwestern Europe, down in the antipodes, the antipodes, the Australians and the New Zealands, we are at our best when we're building and when we have a positive view of what we're supposed to bring about. And I think that there has to be some attention paid to that to overwhelm what their truly pathetic plan is. And I think the good news is that people are beginning to see and discover the language right at their mouth tips, as it were, and deliver it more rapidly, more effectively in conversations to build up that kind of wall of thought that these people are, it doesn't really matter what adjectives I use because they're not going to get to hear them, are they? They're in their little bubble. But for us, I think we're restorers, And what did he say here? A little bit more on this thing, Paul, before I let you back on. He just says, Klaus Schwab's life by subscription is really serfdom. Well, this is true. This is what they're after. It's slavery. Yeah, I guess so. Billionaire globalist corporations will own everything, whatever that means. Homes, factories, farms, cars, furniture, and everyday citizens will rent what they need if their social credit score allows. Only if we comply with it. Only if we say, yes, that is what's happening. And I think the other danger point, my other pernickety point with this sort of description of what they're going to do, is that it's actually pushing their agenda. This may seem possibly a bizarre observation from certain quarters, but whenever you describe exactly what they're going to do, you're actually marshalling all of their ideas and spending time reviewing what they're going to do. And my stance, really, and this is more difficult, I think, is for us to discover our own language to describe our own plans about how it's going to be, which is not us necessarily. In fact, it's definitely not us coming up with new ideas, but it's us going back to the old ideas and body of law that we know exists and restoring it because it works for us. It might not work for people here, there, and other parts of the world who've got a different idea of life. Fine, it might not work for them. But I think we know what works for us. It's what's made us strong in the past. And it's a great underlying cause for why they're attacking it so much, because it's very difficult for them to bring about what they want if you've still got people running around on the fumes of the better parts of what I would call Christian law, which still do exist and are wafting around in our civilization today. How about that?
You think? Well, okay, now he's saying that the government's going to own everything. The government already owns everything. If you have your automobile title registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles, you've already transferred true allodial ownership of your car over to the state, and you received a certificate that guarantees you beneficial ownership. That means that you have ownership and control over it. You have to insure it. You have to inspect it. You have to maintain it and change the light bulbs when they burn out. You have to follow all of the statutes, acts, and codes that are governing the motor vehicle code, because that car that you think is yours is actually their property, and that's why you're using it pursuant to their rules and their direction. And it's the same thing with a title to your property, to real estate title. If you don't hold a allodial title, you don't own it. If you've got gold or silver in a bank vault someplace and you have a certificate of deposit, guess what? If you can't hold it, you don't own it. They already own everything. They just haven't turned the screws and haven't pulled the plug out of the drain while everybody's wealth goes spiraling down into the sewer. And that's the way it's going to happen.
Allodial title. I know what you're saying, Paul. I've still got a funny thing running around in my head about, and this is just long-standing with me. Maybe I've talked about it before. Maybe some listeners have had a similar experience. I remember when I received my first income tax request, right, when I was about 18. Dear Mr. You owe us, and it coming in the brown envelope. You know, they come in brown envelopes over here. I don't know what colour they come in America. I'm assuming something similarly grim to send out a warning that this is serious, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But I couldn't have given you an intellectual response at the time, but I was just furious about it. Sort of, you know, pure rage about the whole thing. Who are you? Stop sending me letters. I want to send them letters. You see, when we talk about their processes, it means that we become enmeshed in them for some reason, and it's in our thinking and in the words that come out of our mouths. Whereas I tend to think, and this is vague, I'm being vague right now because it requires an awful lot more thought, but I think there are certain people out there that have given this an awful lot more thought, and we have to reduce things down to basically a simpler sort of level of understanding. Every time, I don't know about you, but every time I'm invited in to study the machinery of their system, I lose interest very, very quickly. I want nothing to do with it. Of course, they have a lot of power over the minds. I mean, when you try and break down what we mean by their power, and I think about this a lot, you know, how do we break it down? Where does it lie? What is it that we're concerned about? I mean, some letters with some writing come through your door box asking you to do things. Yeah, I don't want to do those things, so I'm not going to do them. But that's not what we're concerned about. I think what we're concerned about is that a lot of people do those things. And it's those people that are going to be asked to come round with a piece of 2x4 and whack you in the head. That, at the end of every sort of government request, there is the hint of violence, is there not? Restraint, yes. Imprisonment, removal of goods and services. You will be hassled by our people. Which people? Well, these people, they're called bailiffs, or they're called Bill, or he's called Simon, or whoever it may be, right? And you look at them and you go, why are you doing this to me? You go, oh, I need to get paid. They're not in that position of having questioned all these things. Now, I don't know quite where I'm going with all this. What I'm saying is that their power, a huge part of their power is that we have all agreed that they've got some. And I'm interested in finding out how we break that agreement very quickly and just say, no, they haven't got any. And the only way, or an aspect of that, is effectively gathering large numbers of people together who begin to, in a very civilized way, build what we want and exclude them and exclude ourselves from these systems that they've laid down. I know that's vague, but it's a reflection of where I'm at with the whole thing. People... It's funny, you have people that really study the law and the machinery of it, and we'll do this and we do that. And I've always found instinctively, I just feel sort of ill in the presence of that stuff. I feel as though by even studying it and going into it, I'm caught. Straight off, I'm caught. That their ideas are even worthy of my time, when most of their ideas are in complete breach of the actual laws as we have received them down through common law, through scriptural law,
yes.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
But you're familiar with notice and the right to be heard, right?
No, I'm not.
No. Okay, well, due process. Let's say the Internal Revenue Service thinks that they want to separate you from some of your Benjamins, if not all of them. They will send you a letter. They will say something. They'll be all very, very nice. They'll say, "We're reviewing your income tax account or your IRS account, and we may find that you may need to provide books and records to help us in our investigation of your account."
Mm-hmm.
If you do not hear from us in 60 days, 90 days, or 180 days, whatever, you can consider this matter closed. If we do not hear from you within 30 days, we will, let's see, no, I went the wrong direction with that. If you just throw it away, if you just ignore it, you say, okay, well, that's bollocks and it's garbage and I don't have to deal with it, whatever. Well, what they did in that confirmatory writing was they first told you that they're investigating your Internal Revenue Service account, so they may come up with the number that they think you owe them, okay? And they may come at you for a books or records request. Okay. Now, if you don't answer that letter, if you don't answer them with, I object, I don't owe you taxes, and I am not giving you my books and records because they're my private property. If you don't object within 30 days, it is presumed that you agree with their authority to not only assess and collect whatever they want to take from you, but also seize any and all of your records going back as many years as they want to go. So you never throw that stuff away. If it's a confirmatory writing, you always answer it, you always object, and you always answer the question with a question. You give them back questions that they have to answer, and if they fail to answer them, they have to throw your account away. They have to never darken your doorstep again. That's how you deal with those. Never, ever ignore a communication from government, from a business, from an employer, from anyone. Because acquiescence is agreement. Learn it, live it,
I know.
believe it.
I don't even like that, you see.
But
I'm in trouble.
But you have to,
I'm really in trouble with that stuff. I've done that for years. I get that, and I'm not even reading it. It just goes in the bin. And then I get the heavier and heavier letter, and I call up, and then I get all smarmy with them, and they go, "Oh yeah," and all that kind of stuff, or whatever I had to do. I mean, it's never been serious for me. Paul, we've been joined but you may have seen, you may not have seen. I don't know what you can actually see here in the studio, but
Sussex man
Chris has joined us, and he's been listening very patiently. And Chris, welcome to the show. How are you?
Well, yes, I'm very well, Paul, and good to hear the other Paul as well.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I'll tell you one thing, interestingly, Chris, was that Paul started to use British foul language. I did hear the use of the word... I did. I was very impressed, Paul, that you used the word bollocks. Sorry if I've offended everybody, but that's very British. And we're having an effect. This is good, Paul. Things are improving a lot on that front. I'm very pleased about that. Sorry, Chris. I've lowered the tone immediately. You've only been here half a minute.
I can
Hi, Chris.
confirm what PEL said about the inland revenue. It applies in the UK as well. What people don't know, income tax is voluntary. There's no law anywhere that says you have to pay income tax. But as soon as you start filling in their forms, you've contracted with them. And I was telling Paul the other day, I was speaking to a lady who has a friend who decided to go private. All she did, she phoned up her accountant because he'd phoned her earlier. So it's this time of year we need to have your records for tax purposes.
Is it?
And she said, she said,
oh, right, sorry.
She said, I'm going private, so I'm not doing tax now, I'm in the private sector. And he was flummoxed, And well, she got some letters, and they got more and more threatening. And she sent a formal notice in saying that I'm totally in the private now.
Right.
And she heard nothing else after that. And there's other people who said the same thing. They haven't actually sent notices or anything, but they've refused to fill them in. But after loads of threatening letters, nothing's happened, because to get you to fill in forms and go all through your records is contrary to the Modern Slavery Act in the UK. You're going to do work for nothing for another person.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that one, Pell and Paul.
Yes, yeah, it's involuntary servitude. They are forcing you to comply or forcing you to perform in some fashion against your will. That is involuntary servitude. It is slavery.
Is there some sort of mechanism like, can't we just send a notice to them and say, you're not allowed to communicate to me ever again?
Yes, you can, I think. And I was listening the other day to somebody talking about council tax. Once you've gone through all the procedures, not paying your council tax, you can just terminate your contract with them, and so you don't want to hear from them again.
That's my kind of way of dealing with it. So
Yeah.
I know it's a bit dense, I accept all that, but I kind of feel that that's how most people feel when they hear these things. They go, well, when you say, well, you've got to learn all this stuff, I'm going, why? Why should I have to do any work? I'm just leading a decent life under the laws of God, and that invalidates your little club, so stop pestering me. In part, as I was saying, it's because they send boogeymen round. They send men, and there are threats in terms of body language, actual language, the tone of the language, the persistence of the letters of demand. I mean, there's an interesting thing. When I've noticed this with a lot of people that start to interact with these sorts of agencies and stuff like that. Chris, I'm just going to mute you a little bit because I've got a bit of echo coming back through your thing. Don't worry, I'll see when you want to speak again. But one of the things was they always send out the naughty letters to arrive with you on a Friday or a Saturday morning. I don't know if you've ever had any of these sorts of things. The bits that are sort of, I remember when I was going through lots of court proceedings, they always arrive on a Friday when you've got no recourse to getting any help or advice or can communicate with anybody over the weekend because everybody's away. It's to make you stew. There are all these subtle little things that they do, which I simply view as part of the bullying process. And I don't take kindly to that, but and it sends out a message, of course, that they're doing this on purpose. That there's something bogus right at the very heart of it.
Of course they are.
Yes, it's. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you can hear you fine, Chris. I just mute you a little bit when I'm talking because I was getting the echo coming back. That's all.
I've forgotten what I was going to say now. It's gone out of my mind.
Good, that was the plan.
You can't. You're devious as them, Paul.
It's terrible. I thought if I'm going to mess up, I'm going to make everybody else that joins in mess up as well. It's a bad trait. I apologise, everybody. There we go. Yeah.
Now, the other thing I was going to say, Paul, there was a very interesting intro that was on just before, I don't know if it was me, the sound went, that man talking about how bad it is for children to be sent to school. They learn far more with their parents. Mm-hmm. And also it's bad to go to a school too early because you're not young enough, you're too young to comprehend, you haven't developed properly. And there were some countries, I forget where they were, I think they were mainly one Scandinavian country and one in Eastern Europe, where children didn't go to school until they were 9, and then they finished school when they're about 14, and they were far more brighter, intelligent than those who've been schooled from infancy when they're 5 or 6 up to 18. Mm-hmm. Because they're learning from their parents a lot more and their brain develops faster. But when they go to school and they can't understand, things, they're just treated as being dumb, and for thereafter they're in the low stream and they never get to full development. So...
were you ever in the low stream, Paul? Were you, Chris? Were you ever in the low stream?
Yeah.
I was too.
I've been in the low.
I was
always
bored.
in the low stream.
What about you, Paul? Were you in the low stream or were you in the high stream all the time? How did it go?
I was bored. I wasn't challenged. I was bored. So
You were bored.
they tried to put me in the low stream. And one specific example was I never saw the importance in spelling. Okay, so that we'd have these spelling tests and all this, and I typically get 20 to 30% of them wrong, and the teacher would give me a hard time about it. And I said, okay, well, here's how I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to intentionally get every single answer wrong on the next spelling test. And I did. And she, of course, seized the opportunity to call me out on it. And I said, well, that looked right to me. So she said, okay, well, how do you spell this? How do you spell this? How do you spell this? She gave me 20 words that were on spelling tests that were beyond the scope where we were. And I got every single one of them correctly, 100%.
Oh, you're one of those.
I made her look like an absolute fool. So.
Well, you don't need to try very hard to make me look like an absolute fool these days, but that's pretty good. I'm quite impressed with that, Paul.
I would never do that.
No, it's okay. I don't mind it. I think we should all act a little bit foolish. I'm I'm developing a great habit for it recently, which is I've got to break it. You're right about. I mean, that thing about just getting things right. My school, the one that I remember most, of course, is from the age of 11 to 18, because that's where. Although I remember, a great deal about junior school and infant school. We used to have this exam over here, and we were told we were the last year that ever took it. So that would be 1971. I'm revealing my age. It was called the 11 plus. And of course, they banned it later on because it's a bit too intense. Whereas I came up in a family and said, no, you'll get to grips with that and you'll get it done. And I did. It was okay. It wasn't a big deal. But the main school I went to, we had the classes would be about 30 to 35. It was an all-boys school. It's the mid-70s. Looking back on it, I think it was pretty cool, actually. I had a lot of fun there, Didn't study as hard as my teachers wanted me to. But the streams were named G, F, and T. G was top, F was you were in the middle, and T was the bottom. And of course, we just said it obviously stands for good, fair, and terrible, because we couldn't think of anything else that it could possibly stand for. You know, good, fair, and terrible. And I spent 1 year in terrible. I mean, 1 year I was terrible. Most of the time in fair. And then I spent 6 months in G when I was doing quite well at English, so they sort of pushed me up to give me some English literature stuff then. But I found myself all comfortable in F, just the right amount of application, but also quite a bit of fun. It seemed to be okay for me, so I was quite happy in the middle stream. There you go, just lurking and hiding all the time. Yeah,
treading water.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, actually, because obviously I'm at that time of life now. I can't believe I'm at that time of life. This century, I was talking right at the beginning, during the bit that didn't get broadcast, about how fast January had gone. Lasted about 25 minutes to me, did January or something. I remember eating some turkey at Christmas Day, and now it's the 1st of February. It's something like that. It's absolutely blazing past. And of course, everybody tells you, rightfully, I guess, that as you get older, this occurs. But I think there's something else going on as well. Even my sons are in their early 20s saying things are going quickly. But not as quickly for them as it seems as though it's going for us. But yeah, everything is going so fast. And yet there's all this time going all the way back to junior school. And although this will be irrelevant really to a lot of people, this is a little thing that's happened this week. A friend that I knew has just passed away, someone who was my age. And apparently many of the people that I went to school with, someone was calling me about a year ago saying, oh, this person's no longer around. And I said, really? I was a bit surprised. I'm sort of out of the loop a bit because I'm a long way away from my home patch in English terms. I mean, it's nothing in American terms, but in English terms, I'm about 290 miles away from home base. And so some of them have been shuffling off this mortal coil cheekily whilst I wasn't aware of it. But this guy, the one that's I shared an awful lot of my life with him, actually. I realised, I've just been thinking about it the last sort of 4 or 5 days since I got the news of his passing. And we went to every single school, to the same school together. It was not always sort of in the same class, but every single school, from infant school, junior school, high school and off, we were together. And then we were part of the same sort of social clan that ran around for several years doing certain things. He was a curmudgeon even when he was about 18. He really was. He was tremendously argumentative, but he also was incredibly generous of spirit at times, surprisingly so. He was a really good guy, and I have so many shared memories with him. One of my first jobs, this has got nothing to do, by the way, with changing the nature of the world, but I'm just letting you know, one of my first jobs, do you remember back in the 70s, obviously in America in the 50s, I've got this view that it was the heyday of this, but the petrol pump attendant, the guy that runs out and says, oh, yes, sir. Okay, well, I was one of those. We still had them in England in the 70s. Young wretches like myself, would run out and in all sorts of weathers under this, it wasn't too bad. And we would fill cars up with smelly petrol. It was, it was reasonably good money when you're 15 and 16 and don't have the proverbial pot to urinate in. And he got me the job there, and we used to work together. We had a lot of fun there. I'm trying to think of one thing that might be fun to mention was, do you remember... Maybe this used to happen in the States. I'm assuming it must have happened everywhere. We would stick the pump in the tank, right? And you'd get kickback from the petrol. If it went in too fast in certain cars, you learn all the different makes of cars because they've all got a different bend in this is boring stuff, isn't it really? But the petrol would kick back and you'd get drenched if you didn't know what you were doing. So we basically built up a little sort of mental notebook of certain cars, like an Austin Allegro. They were bad. You had to go in very slowly with the petrol. And the owners didn't want to do it because they didn't want to get petrol on their shoes, you see. Those were the days. One day, anyway, I got this massive sort of kickback of blowback of petrol, and my entire right leg was drenched in petrol. And so I went back in, got the guys changed, and then came back in. Andy sat there. That was his name. Good guy. And we sat there bored. I said, put a match on my leg, will you? Set fire to that. Don't ask me why. Right. And
You didn't.
I'm serious. I did. I was fascinated to know because I was stupid. I've done certain stupid things like, oh, that's interesting, not thinking of any consequences at all. And the main salesman was on the phone, on one of these wall phones. It was about 5 feet away from this. The whole of my right leg just went up like in a Hollywood movie. It was amazing. It just went woof. It wasn't the actual material; it was the fumes off the top of the jeans, you know. And so the whole thing just went up, and there was the nice smell of burning hair. It all grew back. I had ferociously hairy legs like a gorilla when I was in my 20s. No, it wasn't that bad, but it was just one of those things. And I've been thinking about all these completely irrelevant things for me to mention on a radio station. We're talking about serious stuff. But that's just what's been going on. People have, I've found out a few people that I thought would be around forever have gone. It always makes you rethink things in a good way, and it brings up some amazing memories. And then I'm thinking about the whole thing about memory, you know, and recalling time. And you slip back into a memory, and it's as if all the intervening time never ever took place, including, you know, being in the F stream at school and being beaten up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I had the same. I didn't have a similar experience. I never ever suggested that somebody set fire to my leg.
No,
but
no, you didn't. You hadn't lived, Paul. It was very exciting. Yeah, it was. It put excitement into the day. Oh, look, Paul's on fire. They said, "I am."
I'm sure.
I bloody was.
I'm sure. And I grew up in Minnesota, in the U.S., and there was these little itty-bitty gas stations. Mm-hmm. And they were called the Clark stations. And then, well, actually, they started out as Hudson gas stations, and Hudsons were also owned by the Dayton Hudsons that were the same family that owned the Dayton department stores. But that's not germane to the story. I would sit there. We had 2 pumps on the outside of the parking lot that were self-serve, and then we had 2 up by the building that were full-serve, and I had to go out and do that. And, oh, yeah, those kickbacks are fun. They're lots of fun.
Yeah, someone's written in the chat here, I mentioned the Austin Allegro, one of the most appalling vehicles ever designed. I mean, really, it was, if you saw one, you'd just go, what on earth is that? And it must have been bad because teachers started buying them at our school that we went to, and we would all fall about laughing. I couldn't have afforded one. They cost quite a bit of money, right? And cars in the 70s were, they were all flash and no substance. They just used to fall apart, literally. But someone's written here, that's why they called those British Leyland cars all aggro. They were all aggro. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. XO, they were all aggro. Now, as a link from petrol into music, Paul, you'll be aware that I sent you a track earlier today. For listeners just tuning in, Paul does a thing, we've now called it a B-Mix 432, or I have anyway, where tunes are taken and restructured at 432 hertz. Restructured is probably not the correct technical term. But this track is by Ellen Williams, and the person that sent it in is with us here right now, Chris, in the room. So, Chris, this is Ellen Williams, restructured at 432 hertz. We're going to take a short break. We've got somebody else in the room. Fast Running Cheese, of course, absolutely. I've been waiting for you to turn up, Fast Running Cheese. But before we bring you in, let's play this little song here by Ellen Williams.
I
And that was Ellen Williams with Calon Lan, sung in Welsh, for those of you who are tuned into that thing. In English, A Pure Heart. And Chris, you picked that one out, and what a beautiful bit of music that is.
And certainly a great improvement, with the different frequency. It's certainly done it justice.
Yeah.
And of course, PEL, I expect at one time there was a lot of Welsh speaking in America, which is the ancient British language.
He's gone. Oh, he was muted. Hi, Paul.
No, I was muted. I was just listening. And for one reason or another, in the studio backfeed, it's in mono, and so I actually turned down the studio feed and actually played the original on my workstation here while I was going on. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, it's such a change of pace, things like music like that, and I think, hang on, we've still got a little bit of...
just a touch.
Just a touch. Yeah, let me just mute you, Chris, a little bit. It's such a change of pace, and I know we're all used to modern music, but you should look her up. She's done some fantastic stuff. It's such a wonderful voice, and we need more beauty in the world. And if you don't think that's beautiful, well, don't worry, you will at some point. I would say it's just a matter of time. Maybe as your ears get older, they're prepared to accommodate more stuff. I know that when I was pretty young with music, I was a bit of a fascist about the whole thing. There's still that element, I think, in many men about it. There certainly is in me. There's certain things I just actually can't abide, and they have to be turned off immediately. But also, there were other things that I wouldn't listen to when I was younger. Classical music took quite a time for me to train my ears to sort of get into it. I tried to get into jazz. I found it difficult, really. A lot of them sort of modern stuff, way too pretentious to me. Although I quite like swing music, which is a type of jazz. It's obviously a distinct branch of it. Mm-hmm. So I just like things that are sort of joyful. And the other thing that's interesting, a thing that I always identified even when I was younger, is to try and find music that both men and women can dance to. So rock music tends to go very male, and I am a fan of a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it, because it's basically music that I sit down and listen to from time to time, or did a lot when I was younger. But it's great as your musical tastes expand. And I didn't play the station ID just after that, which I usually do, simply because it seemed a little bit inappropriate. It's quite thunderous. We'll do that a little bit later. Anyway, just gone the top of the hour. You're here listening to Paul English Live at paulenglishlive.com. We're here every Thursday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Well, 10 past 3 today because of certain technical errors. UK, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. There's always a bit of fun here. Around here, bloody hell, and we'll be back every Thursday with this gig. I'm joined currently by Paul Bina and Chris Sussexman, and also somebody who we've not given any mic time to because he just crept in, or she did. You see, I'm making judgments here. Fast Running Cheese, welcome to the studio. You're currently muted. Oh, and we've got a bit of echo. We've got a bit of echo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a lot of echo. So I'm going to work on the basis that Fast Running Cheese is fast fingering something or other to try and sort his buttons out so that we don't get any echo. Let us know if you're...
Okay, is that better?
There you go. Bingo. Sorted. Well done. Welcome to the show, Fast Running Cheese. I'm sure you were christened that. Yeah.
Yes, super fast. You can't catch me. It's from a kid's book. The Stinky Cheese Man. Let's see. What did I want to say? Your pants on fire thing was so funny. That's why I wanted to call in. That was just the way you said it was absolutely hilarious.
Have you done the same thing? Are you part of the club? Are you? I once set myself on fire club.
Something very similar. Like I have an old motorcycle that doesn't have a doesn't like have a gauge, so you have to open up the gas tank, right?
Right.
And I couldn't see in there. I use a lighter to see, and it looked like Old Faithful, fire. Just So I really quickly closed the lid and waited a couple minutes, and then opened it up and was like, okay, so. That's the closest I've got to that.
Oh, no, that's good. I'm glad to know I'm not the only stupid idiot out there at times. There's certain things. I've just done things that afterwards I go, why did you do that? It's sort of like something appears so appealing. The brain used to shut off when I was a teenager. I go, oh, that's interesting. I mean, I shouldn't be saying all these things. I once burnt an entire train coach down. This is terrible. It's all coming out. They've been knocking on the door saying, oh, yeah, we're from the police from 1970, blah, 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 blah. Wait a
minute. You burned down a train coach?
Yeah. Anyway, let's swiftly moving on. But whilst we're still on the topic of fire, I couldn't help it. It was just one of those things. We were bored. It was a lovely summer's day. Hey, what can you do? But I had another friend, right? Another Andy. So there was the Andy who I used to dollop out petrol with, and we did all sorts of stuff together. He was a great guy, actually. I've eaten more ginger nut biscuits and drunk more coffee with him than anybody else. We just ploughed through coffee and ginger nuts whilst we were serving petrol. There was another story, but no, I'll stick on fire because I'm going to get distracted. I mean, I always get distracted. I had another friend called Andy. Now, pyrotechnic, particularly in war movies of the sort of late 60s and 70s, you always get some guy jumping out of a tank on fire or running through a building on fire, that kind of thing. And he was fascinated with this, absolutely fascinated with it. I don't know why. I mean, he'd not sort of been around when I'd set my trouser. This is another Andy completely, Anyway, they built this... They built this very large, brand new shopping centre where I lived, designed by an architect called Poulsen, who turned out to be incredibly corrupt. There was a massive scandal about this guy in the 70s on TV, and he was giving backhanders there or taking backhanders, all of these shopping centres that had gone up. Anyway, they built one near where I lived called the Arndale Centre, and we were in a little sort of section on the east side of Leeds. And this was a grand thing. I remember it. It was like posh. It was like sort of Paris had come to this little place. We were all very impressed, because we were northern folk and we'd not seen things like that. It was all a bit too grand for the likes of us, that kind of thing. Anyway, Andy, my other friend, he used to wear leather. He'd put a leather glove over his hand, and he'd wear a parka. Now, I don't know if you had those sorts of things in the States. It's like a thing with a hood with fur around it. They were big in the 70s. They were kind of the fashion statement. You got a parka, right? And they were very heavy duty. And they kept the rain out and they kept the warmth in, that kind of stuff. So we all had them to go to school in. But he used to get lighter fluid. You can see that I'm going completely off at several tangents, but you might as well know now. I've started, so I'll finish. He'd get lighter fluid, and he used to impregnate the arm and the glove completely in lighter fluid, and then would set fire to his entire arm, right? And then run through the shopping centre. Which alarmed so many people. Not us, of course. We were rolling about laughing, but he used to really enjoy setting himself on fire. One day, after a particularly fiery moment, a nice old lady, who obviously we wouldn't have called a nice old lady because we were youths and we were not fit for nothing back then. She came up and she said, "What are you doing? Stop setting that boy on fire." It was just the way she said it. It went down. It became one of our little stock phrases. So, yes, it's just one of those things. I think probably being from up north, not having much money, boxes of matches being cheap, we just set each other on fire. It was what you did. It's what you did. So there we go. I'm sorry about that.
I think now would be a good time to play the WBN.
Do you think so? We need a break. Yeah, we did. Let's play that. Let's do a bit of station
especially with the disclaimer: the views of the hosts are their own, not necessarily the network.
I think you're right. This is just to cover everybody. They don't want to be associated with me. I don't blame them. Here we go.
Attention all listeners. Are you seeking uninterrupted access to WBN 324 Talk Radio despite incoming censorship hurdles? Well, it's a breeze. Just grab and download Opera Browser, then type in WBN324.zil. And stay tuned for unfiltered discussions around the clock. That's WBN324.zil.
The views, opinions and content of the show hosts and their guests appearing on the World Broadcasting Network are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of its owners, partners and other hosts or this network. Thank you for listening to WBN 324 Talk Radio.
Yeah, that's got me covered then. Phew, I'm not in any more trouble than I was messing it up at the start. Thanks, Paul. That's great. That's really good, yeah. So we only want, if you're going to call in, we only want interesting stories about you setting yourself or your friends on fire. That's obviously where we're headed this week. Sorry about that. Chris, have you ever set anybody on fire?
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, it's never too late to start. I mean, I actually do use the phrase a little bit more about setting our people on fire, but I don't mean literally in terms of a sort of explosive, fiery force, but really in terms of inner motivation. But I think that's happening all over the place, isn't it? So, like we were saying a little bit earlier, I don't know where we go now after that little lot. So, yeah, absolutely. Now, what was I? There was something else. We may be joined by somebody else. We may or may not. We've got about 45 minutes to go. So I've just got a message through. He may join us for a bit. You'll know him if he rocks up. But if he can't rock up, then at least I've not messed that part of the show up this time. We can maybe find out if he's set anybody on fire. But if he's not clued into the conversation, it probably won't mean too much. Somebody writes, it's amazing how attractive playing with matches was pre-VHS video and Tinternet. Now, Tinternet is a northern way of saying, in the north of England, that's what we do. We got we don't say the when you're being extremely northern. It's an old way. But yes, I think so. I've just revealed we were poor, but we were happy and very, very warm.
I blew the lid off of a propane gas grill. Does that count?
Maybe we should just start a show all about fires. I don't know, really. It's really quite interesting, isn't it? You can see it gets everybody going, so... Yeah, I mean, it's a northern tradition, by the way. Guido Fawkes, of course. I mean, he was duff at this, but Guido Fawkes is the guy that stocked the Houses of Parliament, with gunpowder. Got discovered, unfortunately, never lit the fuse. I mean, that would have been fun. Actually, fun's not the right word. It would have killed everybody in there, and there was an awful lot of people in there. He just ended up being hung, drawn and quartered, which was, I think we mentioned that when we were talking about Guido Fawkes a few weeks ago. Do you want to return to more serious matters? I mean, not that setting people on fire is not serious. It's quite a serious thing if you're the one being set on fire, unless, of course, you volunteered to do it like I did. But... yes. So where does that leave us? Where are we left now?
I don't have a clue.
No. I've hijacked your brains, haven't I? Sent them all over the place.
Before you do serious matters,
Yes?
I didn't want to interrupt Paul.
No, Mr. Cheese, please speak. Mr. Fast Running Cheese, please do talk.
Oh, okay. So yeah, before you do serious matters, I think the north in England is a little bit like the south, or the southeast if you're looking at the map, but like the south in America, right? Like people think we're dumb, but we're actually smarter than them. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's how it works. And I've walked all around England, believe it or not. I'm one of the Americans with a passport.
Really?
And yeah. I made the mistake of. Is it Stansted, the Orion Airport? That is not in London. It took me like 4 days to walk to London. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's well on the outskirts. Yeah.
Yeah. It was. London's an S-hole, though. I don't want to cuss on your show. London is literally an S-hole, and it's covered in the human crap everywhere.
Yes, it is.
It's oh, and I don't want to tell the full story and like incriminate myself, but I got punched totally unprovoked by Arab wearing a tuxedo, not a business suit, a tuxedo.
Yeah.
Okay? And I actually came out on top on that, luckily. But like, who does that? I'm well far away from him. He took like a couple steps to boom right in the chest.
Were you trying to set him on fire?
Anyways, then I went up. No, that would have been based, but
yeah. You're right in your observations. I think you're right in your observations about. I've said this probably quite a while. Not that I've ever been to Texas, right? I haven't even been to the south of America. I've been to New York a lot of times, but that's like London. It's not really America. I mean, it was very interesting at the time. I went in the 80s and the 90s, and the last time I was there was about 2005, something like that. And that was kind of miserable 2005 because it was always post 9/11 and all the whole security arrangement at the airport was just depressing when you arrived. It was sort of like, I've packed this in, but it'd already taken a hold on people's heads and they were all behaving in a rather miserable way. It wasn't like I remember when I first went in the 80s, it was brilliant, but Texas is the largest state and currently one of the most troubled, I understand, or certainly the epicenter of something that's going on, some kind of power play in all sorts of ways, as is Yorkshire.
Is it Texas or Alaska?
Alaska may be the big, but I always think Alaska's up there, isn't it? And it's too cold and it's full of snow.
It's not a real
things.
state. It's not a real state.
It's just got a lot of oil in it and a lot of resources, and so it's massively important.
But if you're from Alaska,
yeah,
they'll tell you the first time they meet you. I mean, you'll know. They're like, "Oh, I'm from Alaska." They tell you.
What's the population size of Alaska? How many people live in Alaska roughly? You got any idea? It must be sparsely populated.
I just haven't met some of them.
Yeah,
gotta be.
Yeah, but the south of America and the north of England are parallel in many ways. They share certain aspects. Both got nudged out of being the power centre of the nation. You know, I've mentioned this before. People up in Yorkshire used to always think that York, which is well known because you've got New York, that's how important it was. York should have been the capital of England, but of course it didn't turn out that way. Chris, being a southerner, of course, will curse me, and next time I see him will probably, let me have it with both barrels. But it's true. I grew up on all that sort of nonsense when I was younger. And I don't know whether Northerners are necessarily smarter. I think they're smart people all over the place. But I've always said that Northerners in England are very well balanced because they've got a chip on both shoulders. And it's true. Nice. There's that kind of attitude about things. So, yeah. There are parallels in that way. And we do eat a lot of cheese as well up there. I certainly did when I was young. In fact, I still do now. So a lot of cheese consumption.
Cheese in Europe is so good. We've got junk cheese over here. I don't even know what to tell you. Like, the Amish got some good cheese, but it's just so crazy expensive. I bought it one time on sale, and then I went back because it's the best cheese I probably ever had. It is up there with European cheese and stuff. And it's like $30 a pound regularly. Like, they can get out of here. It's not happening.
Well, as you probably know, there's been a lot of antagonism historically for the last 1,000 years between the French and the English. It's always been there. I somehow feel that it's mellowing for some reason because we're all finding ourselves in the same terrible state. French cheese is outstanding, and yet the European Union have been passing regulations that effectively strip it of its flavour because, health and safety and all this other nonsense, and you can't have live bacteria. People of Europe have eaten this stuff for 1,000 years, probably longer than that. It's fine. It's great. The French have got over 1,000 different varieties of cheese. Of course, they're mad about it. I just think it's great. Why would you restrict all that unless you're seeking to, of course, ruin things once more, which is basically what they continue to do. So who knows? There might be a rapprochement between the English and the French with cheese as the intermediary. You never know. Yeah.
Like, whatever they tell you with food, you should do the opposite. Like the fake butter crap in the 80s, no, forget about it. You want the real butter. It's crazy. For some reason, I'm nervous on the phone. I could go on about food, though, forever. My favorite cheese, though, is probably Danbo from Denmark. That stuff is good. You get the old stinky one. It's like, you can't even barely put it in your mouth. It smells so bad. But then as soon as you do, you're like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, give me some more of that. And, like, let's try heating that up. Let's put that in this. Like, it's good.
Maybe there's time for some. Maybe we need some cheese advertising in the show and really get going with all that kind of stuff. I don't know how we're going to ship it to people. But yes, let's try and move back to things seriously, sort of, although I'm obviously not in too much of a serious mood today. It's just one of those things, is how it happens. We've got some serious things coming up, just to let you know. I had Dennis Wise on a couple of weeks ago, and I was speaking to Dennis the other day. He'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time. Not next week, but the week following. And we're hoping to do things on a regular basis. In fact, we've discussed it, and that will be happening. But he's going to be back on February the 15th, that being the week that is the anniversary of the Dresden event, or events over several days beginning on the 13th of February 1945. A 3-day annihilation of that city. We're going to be talking about that, but spiraling off into other things. So that will be themed very much on that. I've kind of done things about that event for many years, on and off. And also, just to let you know, I'm trying to get hold of Tom Goodrich. Many people will know of him, or know him, in fact. I've been very close to Tom for years. He's not been having much fun the last 18 months to 2 years. I did exchange messages with him the other day. I'd love him to make an appearance, but he doesn't feel up to it, and I understand for why. However, I'm hoping to do a sort of pre-show phone recording interview with him, at least 10 or 15 minutes, just so that he can say hi to everybody and do things. And I think he's improving, but we're going to try and find out. So if you want to have anybody in your thoughts, Tom Goodrich is a very good man to have in your thoughts. He's done so much for our inquiry into real truth about things. And if you're not familiar with his books, they're Hellstorm, and the other one is, I can't remember the title now, what a terrible thing, about World War II, the two that are most prominent in my mind anyway. And also he did a phenomenal book on the West, the late 1800s in the West, called Scalp Dance, which I understand is his best-selling book ever, which many people don't know about. That's told in a true researched and accurate fashion by Tom. It's a brilliant book. I've got a copy of it on my shelf. You can pick copies up all over the place, about the sheer intestinal fortitude of those people at that time, ploughing across the West and dealing with Indians, not Hollywood Indians, actual Indians, and the way they actually behaved and what they had to do. So it's gripping stuff. So that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks' time.
I think it might be called The Bad War, the book we're looking for, but
I
might be wrong on that.
It is. I didn't do any studying about this before today's show, so I've got all these things on my bookshelves, but there's just so much on my bookshelves, and sometimes my head sort of caves in with what I'm trying to recall. So, but yes, it is. It's The Bad War. It's about the war against Japan and Germany and the whole thing. And it's an extension in many ways of Hellstorm. But although this wasn't meant to be a bit about that, if you haven't read Hellstorm or are not familiar with it, I can't recommend it highly enough, but it's a very challenging read. I doubt if you will read a book more challenging in terms of its emotional intensity and what it signifies. And of course, to a great degree, we are enduring to this day the fallout from that conflict, which was certainly in Britain's case and in America's case wholly avoidable, except that neither of those countries were under the control of Americans or British people. And that's right. Obviously, that's the way it was, and that's another great communication that you have to make for the rest of your life, and you probably won't get too far with most people on it, but it still needs to be made.
Right. I have Hellstorm. I'm still working on getting a copy of The Bad War. It's very difficult to find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I don't have a physical copy. I don't have a physical. Chris, have you read those? Are you familiar with those books?
Yeah, but not The Bad War. I haven't heard of that one, Paul.
Yeah.
I can have a look and see if I can find it.
Yeah.
I have so many going through my head, it's a job to remember them all.
Oh, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Yeah, it does. It builds up. It's not a memory issue. It's a lack of disk space issue. You just go, whoa, I can't get any more in. I'm crammed full with things. Someone has written a very vivid comment there, but I can't disagree with it. 2 prize C asterisk T S's. Yes. Bomber Harris and Whining Winnie Churchill. Well, yeah, they did call him Winnie Whining Churchill, but it's a topic of it's an emotive topic. Interestingly, I don't know if I mentioned it last week. I've got a physical copy of Dennis Wise's video. Adolf Hitler, the greatest story never told. Yet again, really a must viewing for people that are serious about inquiring about the true roots of why the world is the way it is today. And I've lent that out to some good people that I know, and I'm going to be very interested to see what they say. They're not people who are necessarily seasoned in studying this area of history from this perspective. So I think it could be very, very useful. I'm very interested in that, in trying to find, whatever effective ways we can to get people to come to grips with what is a particularly unpleasant story and narrative. It's not particularly, it doesn't sort of energize people when they actually get to the bottom of what the real truth is. It's an extremely sobering experience, really, with all that kind of stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So,
well, I definitely think we veered into the serious. So we did exactly what you intended to do.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I did have lined up some health things for tonight, but as I was saying earlier, maybe I was saying it during the bit that didn't go out. As I was saying earlier, that there was a few problems in getting that organised, but Chris earlier today put me onto someone. I had a great chat with them. Unfortunately, we couldn't get them online in time for today, but I'm expecting to have them on a little bit later, maybe this month. And that's really to just do with regaining control over health issues and what we mean by all of that. And of course, all of these things are fully interrelated. Once you pick one part of the canvas that has been laid across, as you start to unpick the whole thing, you can't help it if you keep going. And of course, what's been very encouraging these last few years is that so many people are beginning to do that. It is very encouraging indeed. I was just see if I could find some more clips here. A Dutch commentator, just things to keep moving things along a bit. You can see that this show has been very well pre-planned, can't you? I hope that's coming across, everybody.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't you have something from Elvis?
I might do, but I don't know whether we can do that. You see, it's closely linked. Let me just have a look. It's closely linked with whoever might be turning up, and it's not Dennis. All right. Dennis picked Elvis the other week. This is going to just turn into a record show if I don't watch it, isn't it? Maybe that's not such a bad thing. I don't know. So we'll just have to hold fire on that for a while, Paul. We're just going to have to hold fire. Oh, I'll tell you what, we did have a request for a song in. I haven't heard this one either, but it's going to get played now because it's just come up. So let me wind back. I want to make sure, because I credited the wrong person last week. And this is Warren. I don't know if Warren, you asked last week as well, and I got it wrong. So I did apologise last week for that, but then I am a bit of a bumbler. Suggestion: Homburg by Procol Harum. If possible, please. Well, it is, but brace yourselves, everybody, because I've never heard. I may have heard it before, but I don't recognise it. This is 3 or 4 minutes long. Here we go.
Business friend has packed her bags and fled, leaving only Asheville ashtrays and the lipstick on Mayfair. The mirror on reflection has climbed back upon the wall, for the floor she found descended, and the ceiling was too tall. Your trouser cuffs are dirty and your shoes are laced up wrong. You'd better take off your Homburg, 'cause your overcoat is too long. The town clock in the market square stands waiting for the hour. When its hands they both turn backwards, and our meeting will devour.
Your trouser cuffs are dirty, or something like that. I'm not very good with the lyrics there, but that was Procol Harum, and definitely had echoes of Whiter Shade of Pale. Somebody wrote in the chat, "My cat's gone, a whiter pale of shade," as that record was playing. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm not a big cat fan myself, anyway. Anybody heard that one before? Nope. Me neither. So probably not up your street, Chris, but there you go. There's nothing we can do. These people will...
No, it wasn't bad.
Wasn't bad. You know, there's the Whiter Shade of Pale, which is a fantastic song. There's a recording of it. I mean, I often think of them really as just a one-song band. There's a recording of them doing that live in Denmark. It's absolutely amazing with a full orchestra. His voice just got better and better the older he got, and it's a wonderful song. So there was all of that. What did I find here? Listen to this. Here's our pals again. I think it's our pals. Didn't want to play. What about that? What was happening there? Normally those things... Oh, I know what I'm not doing. Here we go. Oh, no. Didn't want to work. Sorry about that. More bumblingness. I've got a little clip thing here and it should work. Nope, don't want to play. There you go. You line all these things up, you spend minutes getting it ready, and it all goes wrong. How about that? I don't know why that had done that. I don't need to... We're down to the last sort of 24, 25 minutes of the show this week. This week's rambunctious nature is a reflection of my week. So there we go. It was just one of these weeks where a lot of funny little strange things didn't come together and many other ones did that I wasn't expecting. And if you want to pitch in, if you want to call in, I mean, you can obviously free to keep on typing in the chat room on Rumble, but if you want to call in and pass a comment talking about cheese or fire or World War II or anything that we've been bumbling around on this evening, but it's been fun, actually, you can do. Go to paulenglishlive.com and you'll see a link there, or if you just want to type it straight into your browser, paulenglishlive.com/call, C-A-L-L. It'll bring you into the studio here where you can ask all sorts of interesting questions of the people that are gathered here this evening. And I'm joined currently by Paul, who's been with me from pretty early on in the show, and Chris, Sussex man, who's been here likewise, and the recent edition of Fast Running Cheese from America. So there we go. And you could join the company and we could bumble along even further. Any topics, gentlemen, that you would like to raise? Anything that you would like to talk about?
Well, I have a question for Fast Running Cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, because I'm on another radio show where there's actually people that call in from literally around the world and across the country for sure. And there's a lot of reports that there really isn't anything of any substance going on down at the border, that it's mostly media hype and just the news whipping up a frenzy of patriots and the like, fear in the populace and anger in the patriots. What are you hearing about what's actually going on down there?
Well, see, I'm in the foothills of the Appalachia in North Georgia, so the only thing I can say is we are, and I got to be careful because I don't want to get British people in trouble, but we are we're crawling in Mexicans. Like, they don't speak English, and they all have very nice cars, and it's like, how is this? I mean, you just drive by the welfare office if you don't believe me, and the parking lot's full of like brand new cars, and it's like, anyways, yeah. So that's the only thing I can say is they're definitely coming in, but I'm nowhere near the border. Yeah, I'm nowhere near the border, but.
Well, the reports that I'm getting is that what the governor is doing and taking a stand against immigration is actually not
it's ridiculous.
What is
just
really
sending
going
them in.
on. Yeah,
I've been calling them Hot
allowing
Wheels.
Them to pass. Yeah.
I've been calling him Hot Wheels, which is totally inappropriate because he's in a wheelchair. So I've been calling him Hot Wheels because he's just shipping them everywhere, like I don't know, Meals on Wheels, but it's not Meals. It's like just the beans. I don't know. It's it's way worse what he's doing. Like, he thinks he's owning the libs, but he's not. He's just sending them in. Like, they're just going to send them. It's just ridiculous. Why, if you can send them there, why can't you send them back south?
This is Abbott, is it?
Oh, yeah. Greg Abbott, yeah.
Yep.
Hot Wheels. Just totally inappropriate, I know. I'm going to stop saying it.
No, I don't mind. You can, you live in a free speech country. We do, Chris, don't we? Chris,
Yeah.
Chris, do we live in a free speech country?
Well, we're supposed to, but it's not in reality.
I don't know if you're allowed to say that, Chris. Actually,
You got Sven Longshanks. I wanted to bring him up, but I didn't want to interrupt because when you were talking about how the Indians actually were. Yeah, he I've probably listened to it 3 times. If you type in Indian Atrocities, Radio Albion, you'll get, it's a 3-part series. He's reading an audiobook from Indian Atrocities, but he's got a nice radio voice. It's worth, that's how they really were. I mean, they were like kidnapping white children and like raising them to go attack white people when they're older and stuff. It was ridiculous. This is like the memoirs of one of those kids who escaped and actually got captured again and escaped again. And like, they were real upset that he betrayed them because they were like, we turned you into an Indian. And it's like, well, this one was still white. And he couldn't even read. He couldn't even write. Sorry. So it was all dictated. You know what I mean? Because he'd been raised by Indians. But he was a smart guy otherwise. It's worth a listen for sure. And then, yeah.
Well, there are a lot of. I don't have the account to hand, but I don't know if I've mentioned this elsewhere. But I can remember most of it. There's an account of a boat, a ship, arriving at Jamestown sometime in the 1600s, late 1600s, and obviously they've just spent 3 months at sea, and no doubt. That was very challenging, and no doubt all the people that got on the boat in England were not the ones didn't get off it at the end. And so I don't know how the approach to Jamestown is, but they obviously come down some tributary or whatever it is. And they all came up on the top deck to get fresh air as they're pulling in. And off to one side, out from behind some sort of rushes, some reeds, there comes a canoe, and in the canoe there are several squaws and several young Indian children, all paddling like mad, really high speed, as fast as they can possibly go. And this draws the attention of everybody on the top deck, and as it would, because they think they're on a collision course with their own boat, and it appears to be that way because they're going to cut across them from right to left. And then half a minute later, another canoe is seen following them in pursuit, full of white guys armed to the teeth, going quicker. And they realise that there's something very, very serious is about to happen or unfold, and they're not happy about it all because they've just arrived, and it's not a particularly pleasant event that they think they're about to watch, which they do. And both the boats get in front of their ship, now over to the left or starboard side or port. I can't remember. I'm a Dumbo with that stuff. But the pursuing canoe catches up with the first canoe, and they killed everybody in that canoe with oars and pushed them under the water and drowned them and killed them. Whilst this is going on, in sight of everybody on the top of it, they're going crazy because they don't like this. They think this is awful and appalling, and it's not what they've come for. Of course, it's a very distressing thing to see. And they pull into port and dock, and they're disembarking, and they're still in a high state of agitation and hysteria by all of this. And the men in the canoe by now have pulled up to the dockside as well and got out, coming up the steps and are coming along the quayside to meet the harbour master or whatever it is. And they are confronted by the ship's captain, these men, who's apoplectic with rage that, this is the thing that they see, this slaughter of what they consider to be innocent people. And so if you only see it from that perspective, that is the story that you would think you're seeing. But they then explain what had happened. And it turned out that these Indians were from a tribe who worshipped a god that was a god of pain. And they were taught in the arts of torture. And one of their party, one of these men's party, they had discovered one of their friends who had been tied to a tree by these squaws and these children, and had he was still alive when they found him. He'd had the flesh peeled off of him right down to his waist, from his head to his waist. So they put him out of his misery, but this is what basically kicked them off. They'd had enough. Now, you might say that this is a terrible story. It is an absolutely awful story, but it's not an isolated incident of things like this happening, a degree of cruelty that we can't countenance. I mean, some people might say, well, it's rich coming from you white people with all your bombs and everything. But that's the way it unfolded. That's what was happening when they were confronting certain tribes. So they felt that the more pain they could inflict on their enemy, it appeased their God and would bring more favor to them. Not the sort of religion I think that would work too well these days. And there are accounts of these things. I mean, I don't dwell on these things, but I do remember that one very vividly because it's from years ago that I read it, and obviously I haven't forgotten it. So I'm just recounting it here. And if you've only got one perspective on a thing, you more often than not will not be fully informed, as we were talking about earlier with regards to all of the history that we've been fed. Over the last 400 or 500 years, well, it went like this, and these were the good guys, and these were the bad guys. You go, well, I don't know about that. Let me just have a look at this book over here. Oh, we don't want you reading that book. We don't want you reading those accounts. No. Yeah. Well, we want to read those accounts. Tough. We're going to read them, and then a different picture emerges. Very different.
I don't expect I'll be forgetting that story anytime soon either, Paul. Thank you.
So, yeah, I just thought I'd lift everybody's mood. I hope you're feeling happy now. So if you think life's tough now, just be thankful that you were a pioneer being tortured to death in such a horrific way, because that's just completely not on. Of course, we're not. What they were doing, the so-called witch trials and all of this attack on witches. I don't have any books on that. Chris, do you have any books or any information with regards, to the persecution of so-called witches in the Middle Ages over here?
Yes, I think I do have a few. And again, that's a different thing to what you perceived. A lot of people were accused of being witches because they weren't the right politics and they didn't support the government. So they classed them as a witch and they were burnt at the stake. So, and also, a lot of them were accused of poisoning the wells as well. That caused the plague, which turned out to
like
be
the
a
Jews
certain
did.
race. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know who does the wells for real. I mean, they do it today in Gaza.
Yeah,
well, they're doing it to our tap water here in the UK.
Yeah, that's what the
too.
Black Plague really was. And I'm not just trying to be funny. Yes. That's what the Black Plague really was.
Yeah, there are. I am not fully immersed in that, but I've seen the titles of books, and it's an area I don't know. I mean, I keep talking about the witches and stuff because burning people alive at the stake is not good. I don't care what they've done. You don't do that. I'm serious because it's a terrible thing. It sort of reveals a terrible distortion of what people think is justice. There's no need for that. He said in a sort of modern.
Something really bad.
Really bad. Just being hung is it, because I think that there are definitely grounds. It's a law. You murder people, you pay with your life, and this has got to be reintroduced again, as far as I'm concerned. Of course, the danger that we have in modern living is the sophistication with which people can be framed for things like this. This is worrying stuff, and the idea that innocent men and women have been hung, which they no doubt have, is a great terror to us. But what's the other side of it? A rampant and ever-escalating criminal sort of underclass. or a culture of it that is part of the overall decay of everything. So I'm not saying it's an easy question to answer, and I really don't feel as though I'm fully qualified. Although I came across a pamphlet written by a vicar here in England, he's still alive, about 10 years ago, 5 or 10 years ago, about why the reintroduction of corporal punishment and hanging for murder is necessary. And the reasons he gave were very good. So, it's not all about reason, but some kind of measure has to be applied. It might be bad for certain individuals, no doubt it is, but some framework for bringing that about has to be brought about. And I think, the slackness in that area is, as I said earlier, part and parcel of this disintegration of the rigor and the law under which we live. But the witches always struck me as being completely mad. I mean, one of the other stories I heard, Chris, apart from the Wells story, was that churches at the time were supposed to be the provider of healing, and yet many of the wise women of the villages understood and had received down through the centuries all of the cures necessary, through the application of herbs, the understanding of the applications of this, that, you've got that, you do this, many of which was based on sound and known experiences that had travelled down through hundreds of years, and they were able to sort of sort people out. Or at least I think they were. No doubt we've been told, no, they all got covered in warts and this, that, and the other. But, it's who's telling the story. Again, you've got to say, who is telling this story? And do they have a dog in this fight? Is there a vested interest in it? And usually there is, so you get a distorted account of what really took place.
Well, it's a bit like today, all the good stuff, things that can heal you, the government immediately bans. I mean, they already started, as you know, Paul, putting a ban on nicotine because, contrary to many people's belief, nicotine is necessary for the body because it's in the receptors of the stomach and deals with poisons that come into it, especially snake venom. And,
yes.
And we've been flooded with poisonous fluoride in the water, which replaces the nicotine in our stomach, so that makes us more subject to diseases. And contrary to belief, nicotine isn't addictive because they think tobacco is addictive. Well, it is. It's because of the chemicals they put in it to make people keep on smoking and go after a particular brand.
Yes.
So, and now they're trying to, what was it the other thing I read? You were talking about Bill Gates, and there was one clip says, we must get rid of lemons.
Yeah, he was trying to patent. Do you know he was trying to patent the lemon? He wanted to get hold of it because
so he could destroy it.
Yeah. Because, I've heard frozen lemons, if you take the zest, the yellow bit on the outside, it's called the zest. I always thought it just meant that it was zesty. But that, if it's frozen, is a tremendous anti-cancer thing, an antioxidant, a tremendously powerful one. Lemons are unbelievably powerful things. Interesting, though, that you bring up nicotine, because there's a thread really back into what I was just talking about with the Red Indians, which bears out what you were saying. Obviously, their wealth was measured in cattle and or their horses. So they would be involved in cattle drives and looking after their livestock, very important part of their asset base, as it were. Not that they would have called that being Red Indians, they would have called their horses whatever they called them. But on these long drives across the plains, they would regularly see their cattle and their horses bitten by venomous snakes. And they used to carry with them a poultice of tobacco poultices, and they would be strapped onto the bite wound as fast as they could do it. And the nicotine seeping out of the tobacco would get into the bloodstream and would stop the venom rotting out the organs of the animal, because that's what it does. Even if it doesn't, the fast-acting stuff, the stuff that we're rightfully alarmed about, these snakes and spiders that bite you and you sort of kaput in 30 seconds or 30 minutes or whatever it is, of course, you need to be wary of them. But venom is really, really nasty stuff. I mean, it's a joke that I say it that way, but it is. And, you're talking about fluoride. I think that's an aspect. It's almost like a venom in terms of its effect. And so nicotine is actually, a big positive thing. And I'll probably do a show about this because for all sorts of reasons, my wife being ill, I've actually got her on nicotine, and it's one of the things that has had the most marked effect on improving her. She's still got a long way to go, but it's made a big difference to her. And as you were saying, Chris, it's not addictive, or at least Yale University said it's not addictive in 2015 in a report that's difficult to get hold of. And there are other very, very positive effects of it. And our body is full of what are literally called nicotine receptors to actually take it in. One other thing, tying another thread as well, just here, going back to Hellstorm and World War II. I might have mentioned this before, but I was always interested that the National Socialists, during their beer meetings, banned smoking. And I know it was for health reasons, and I don't think Mr. Hitler was a big fan of it. And I can understand that because there's that aspect of it. But I think one aspect of it and I think I read something about this somewhere, all the guys at the back smoking cigarettes and pipes and things were a little bit harder to reach emotionally. They were a little bit sharper in the mind and a bit quicker-witted. And I've often thought about that. You know, we have this mythical picture, don't we, of the old bearded European man in the forest with his hat on. He's sat on a log and he's smoking his pipe and he's considering the universe or whatever he's considering, or, you know, how to boil a carrot or whatever it is. But it's kind of synonymous with wisdom or a thoughtful type of intelligence. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that's exactly the case.
The other point is nicotine is the only known antidote to the spike protein, which is a code word for snake venom.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And a lot of people have been affected. Again, they've got relief from it. So, of course, the government doesn't want you to know that, do they?
No, they don't. And I've seen all the over here. I don't know if anything's happening in the States, but over here they've just suddenly started talking about nicotine a lot. There's a plan to make America, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand nicotine-free. I think it is by 2030 is what they want to do. Because it's very, very bad. No, it isn't. And there are no side effects with it. It's a thing from nature, a bit like, you know, people who apply the medical use of cannabis and so on and so forth. These plants exist. It's the knowledge to use them effectively. I would have thought, Chris, it's probably got something to do with affecting the profits of the pharmaceutical industry. But then, you know, what do I know? Yeah.
You think?
And also it's counteracting their vaccine program, the desired end results, isn't it?
Yes, I think it does. I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned him here before on the show. I'd love to interview him, actually. There's a guy in Texas, so there's another connection. It's all going in Texas. Dr. Brian Ardis has done some tremendous videos on this stuff. He's definitely worth looking up. He's the one that has got this information regarding venom and regarding of the counteractive effects of nicotine. And I think at one point he said, you know, God has basically supplied us with nicotine as a natural revitalizer of the immune system, because there's parts of the cell that are literally called nicotine receptors. And one of the things I remember him explaining, so but we're talking about this at the end, but we'll maybe carry this thread on to next week, was that those people that have got long COVID, so-called whatever it may be, when they get them on nicotine, the nicotine particles, as it were, go into the blood, come along, bump into the cell that's got this gunk on it, whatever it's called. Let's call it COVID because they want to call it that. And it goes, hey, I live here, and it kicks it off. It kicks the bad cell off of the damaging cell, off of the cell, connects in its rightful place, and your body slowly flushes this damaging stuff right out, you know, right out of the whole thing. Hey, there's the music at the end of this show. So thank you very much for being with us this week. I won't be doing a post show after this. I think we'll close down on Rumble after this because it's been quite a week, and I think I need to close these things after 2 hours. If you want to carry on talking, you could always come into you could call into the studio. There's room for quite a few more if you wanted to do that. I'll be back next week at the same time, probably with a guest, and we will get off to a proper start next week, as I'll stay up for days in advance to make sure that it happens. I want to thank everybody who's joined me tonight. Paul, thank you very much. Chris, great that you were here, and I'd love to have you back more often. We get into English common law and that stuff. And Mr. Fast Running Cheese, your spontaneous appearance has been much appreciated. Always good to talk about cheese and the other things that we've touched upon. Final words, gentlemen. We've got about 40 seconds.
Very good show, Paul. We covered a lot of interesting information.
Great show.
Yeah.
Cool. Don't set yourself on fire, everyone. If you get covered in petrol, it's not a good idea. Don't do that. Unless you're very, very young and can run fast enough to knock all these things out. That's it. We're wrapped up and out of here for this week. We'll be back, as I said, next week on WBN 324. We'll be on all the other stations, Freefall Radio South Africa, and we'll be here on Rumble. And I will be having a guest on next week, and I know who it is. So we'll announce that later on. It should be a lot of fun. Thanks, everyone, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.